Hello, and welcome back to Native Flow, the podcast where we grow together in English and in life. I'm truly happy you're here. Whether you're sipping your coffee, walking outside, or just taking a quiet moment for yourself, I want to thank you for choosing this time to listen, to learn, and to grow. Today's episode is close to my heart. It's for anyone who has ever said, I wish I started earlier, or maybe I'm too old to learn this now. If that voice ever lives in your mind, this episode is for you. Because here's the truth. You are never too old to learn something new. Your age is not a weakness. It's your power. It means you've lived, you've tried, you've fallen, and you're still here. Still learning, still reaching for more. That's not something to hide, that's something to celebrate. In this episode, we'll talk about why adults like you are some of the strongest, smartest learners out there. And if you're learning English right now, you're already proof that growth never has an expiration date. So get comfortable, open your mind, and let's begin this beautiful journey together. One word, one idea, and one step at a time. Because your journey isn't over, it might just be getting started. Why we stop ourselves. Have you ever wanted to try something new, something you were excited about, and then suddenly you stopped yourself? Maybe it was a new hobby, a course, or even just speaking English with someone in real life. You felt the interest, maybe even a little motivation, but then something inside you said, no, not now, maybe later. It happens more often than we think, and usually it's not about being too busy or too old. Those are the excuses we give ourselves. The real reason often lives deeper, inside our mindset, inside our fears. Let's take a closer look at why we stop ourselves, especially as adults. One of the biggest reasons is self-doubt. That quiet voice in your head that whispers, you're not good enough, or you'll never be able to do this. Maybe you've told yourself, other people are smarter, or it's too late for me to learn. Self-doubt is sneaky. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It pretends to protect you from embarrassment or failure, but really, it's stopping you from growing. Another common barrier is the fear of failure. And honestly, that fear makes sense. As children, we're allowed to fail. In fact, we're expected to. Babies fall when they learn to walk. Kids make grammar mistakes while learning to speak. No one thinks twice about it. But as adults, we're often told to act like we know what we're doing, and that creates pressure. The idea of making a mistake in front of others, especially in public, feels scary. What if someone laughs? What if we look foolish? Think about this. Have you ever wanted to join a dance class or try something creative like painting, singing, or learning to code, but you didn't because you thought people would judge you? You're not alone. Many adults avoid trying new things simply because they're afraid of looking silly or slow. I know someone in her 40s who always wanted to learn how to swim, but she never signed up for lessons because she was embarrassed to be the only adult beginner in the pool. It wasn't her age that stopped her. It was fear. Fear of being seen as behind. And then there's perfectionism, that strong desire to do everything perfectly from the very beginning. It sounds like a good thing, right? Wanting to do your best? But perfectionism can actually be a huge obstacle to learning. When you feel like every sentence you say in English has to be perfect, you stop speaking. When you believe every decision must be 100% right, you stop trying. And when your goal is perfection, even small mistakes feel like total failure. Now, let me ask you this. Where do these thoughts come from? Were you born thinking you weren't good enough, or did those ideas grow over time? maybe after some negative experiences or comments from others. The truth is, many of our internal barriers come from past moments where we felt judged, rejected, or compared to someone else. Maybe you were told in school that you weren't good at languages or bad at math, and now years later, those old words still affect how you see yourself. But here's the good news. Your beliefs about learning are not fixed. You can change them. You can build a new mindset, one that supports growth instead of fear. In fact, mindset is often more important than age, talent, or even intelligence. Two people can have the same ability, but if one believes in growth and the other believes they're not smart enough, their results will be completely different. So, what is a growth mindset? It's the belief that your abilities can improve over time with effort, practice, and patience. It doesn't mean everything is easy. It just means that progress is possible. And when you believe that, you start to take more risks. You allow yourself to be a beginner. You stop waiting to be perfect and start enjoying the process of learning. Remember, the only people who never make mistakes are the ones who never try. Making mistakes is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're doing something brave, that you're stretching yourself, that you're learning. I always tell my students, fluent speakers aren't perfect. They're just people who didn't quit when it got uncomfortable. So the next time you feel like saying, I can't do this, try asking yourself a different question. What if I could if I just gave myself permission to learn? You see, the biggest wall is not outside of you. It's not your age, your schedule, or your memory. The biggest wall is in your mind, and once you break that, you'll realize there's a whole world of learning still open to you. Stay with me because in the next part of this episode, we'll talk about the science behind learning in adulthood and why your brain might be stronger and more flexible than you think. Learning at any age, the science behind it. Have you ever heard the expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? It's one of those common sayings that people use when they believe it's too late to learn something new. The idea behind it is simple. After a certain age, your brain just stops changing. You get stuck in your ways. You can't grow, can't change, can't improve. But here's the truth. Science tells us something very different. In fact, we now know that the adult brain is still very capable of learning. There's even a name for this, neuroplasticity. Don't worry. That word might sound complex, but it simply means that your brain can change and adapt no matter how old you are. Just like your muscles get stronger when you exercise, your brain can become stronger when you learn. Think of it like this. Your brain is a living system. It's not a finished product. It's always growing and adjusting. When you learn a new skill like playing the piano, driving a car, or speaking a new language, your brain starts building new connections. These are called neural pathways, little roads inside your brain that carry information. The more you use a skill, the stronger and faster these roads become. It's very similar to walking through a forest. The first time you try to walk through, it's slow and difficult. The path is full of plants, and you have to push through. But if you keep walking the same way every day, that path becomes clear. Eventually, it turns into a trail. That's what happens in your brain when you repeat something. It's not instant. It takes time, but it works at any age. Of course, learning as an adult can feel different. Children may seem to pick things up faster, especially languages. But this is often because they're in a full-time learning environment, school. They also don't have the same fears that adults do. They're not worried about sounding strange or making grammar mistakes. Adults, on the other hand, often compare themselves to others and judge their progress more harshly. But that doesn't mean adults can't learn. In fact, adults have some clear advantages: more life experience, stronger focus, and deeper motivation. Let me share something interesting. In studies on brain activity, scientists have seen adults in their 60s, 70s, even 80s learning new skills. One famous example is people learning to juggle later in life. After just a few weeks of practice, scans showed new brain activity in areas connected to movement and coordination. That's neuroplasticity in action. It proves that the brain continues to respond and grow even decades after formal education ends. Now, that doesn't mean learning is always easy. Just like lifting weights at the gym, using your brain can be tiring at first. You may feel frustrated or slow, but that's part of the process. Struggle doesn't mean failure. It means your brain is doing something new. Every time you try again, your mental muscles get stronger. Let's go back to the metaphor of the brain as a muscle. If you've ever gone to the gym after a long break, you probably felt sore the next day. That soreness is a sign of growth. The same thing happens with your brain when you use it in new ways. You might feel tired, confused, or even overwhelmed, but if you keep going, you build mental strength. You start to feel more confident, more capable. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Learning is not a race. You don't have to learn as fast as someone else. Progress is personal. One person might learn new grammar quickly, but struggle with pronunciation. Another might speak fluently, but take longer to understand written texts. That's okay. There's no perfect learner. There's just consistent effort and the courage to keep going. So, the next time you hear someone say, "I'm too old for this," or if you catch yourself thinking it, remember this: your brain doesn't know your age. It only knows what you do with it. If you give it something new to do, like learning English, trying a new recipe, or studying something that excites you, it will respond. It will grow. That's not magic. That's science. And honestly, that's kind of exciting, isn't it? It means your brain is not stuck. It means your story is still being written. It means you're capable of learning more than you thought, not just because you're strong or smart, but because you're human, and humans are made to learn. In the next part of the episode, I'll share some real stories of people who started learning something new later in life, stories that might remind you of yourself, because sometimes the most powerful lessons come not from theory or research, but from the experiences of real people who said, "Why not now?" So stay with me and get ready to be inspired. Real-life stories of late learners. Let me tell you a few real-life stories. Stories that show how powerful it can be to say yes to learning, no matter your age. These aren't stories of superstars or famous celebrities. These are everyday people, just like you and me, who decided to start something new later in life. And by doing so, they changed not just what they could do, but how they saw themselves. The first story is about a woman named Angela. At the age of 50, Angela was working in a quiet office, doing the same kind of work she had done for more than 20 years. Her children were grown, and she often felt like something was missing in her life, a kind of creative spark. One day, while walking past a small art shop in her neighborhood, she saw a sign that said, "Beginner's Painting Class. No experience needed." She smiled and thought, "I've always wanted to try painting, but maybe it's too late now." Still, something pulled her inside. That small decision changed everything. The first class was messy. She didn't know what she was doing, and her hands didn't feel steady, but she loved it. The colors, the quiet focus, the feeling of putting something new into the world. It made her feel alive again. Now, 5 years later, Angela has a little art studio in her home. She paints almost every weekend. Her paintings are not famous, but they bring her joy. And even better, she has started teaching other adults how to paint too. All of this began at age 50 with one small step. Now, let me tell you about Dottie, a grandmother from India who started yoga at the age of 67. For most of her life, she believed yoga was for young, flexible people. She thought it was too late for her to even try. But after some health problems and back pain, her doctor recommended gentle yoga. She joined a senior class at the local community center, feeling nervous and unsure. On the first day, she couldn't touch her toes. She even laughed at herself. But the teacher smiled and said, "You're not here to be perfect. You're here to feel better." Day by day, Dottie started improving. Her balance got better. Her pain reduced. But more than anything, she felt proud of herself. She felt strong again. Today, she practices yoga every morning, and she even shows simple exercises to her grandchildren. Can you imagine? At nearly 70, she became more active, flexible, and confident than she was in her 40s. And finally, there's Ahmed, a man I know personally. He lives in Egypt and started learning English when he was almost 60 years old. He had always dreamed of understanding English movies and talking to people from other countries, but he never had the chance when he was younger. One day, after his retirement, he told himself, "It's now or never." He began slowly using a mobile app, watching YouTube videos, and writing down new words in a notebook. At first, it was hard. He made many mistakes. Sometimes he forgot the same word 3 times, but he didn't stop. He studied every day, even if it was just for 15 or 20 minutes. After 2 years, he could understand full podcasts. He could have conversations online with people from different countries. Now, he helps younger learners in his town practice speaking, and he proudly tells them, "If I can do it at 60, you can do it too." These stories are not about talent or luck. They are about one important choice, the choice to try, to be brave, to learn something new, even if it's uncomfortable at first. And what's beautiful is that each of these people found something more than just a skill. They found confidence. They found meaning. They found a new part of themselves. So I want to ask you, what would your life look like if you said yes to learning again? Would you feel more confident, more connected, more alive? Maybe you've been thinking about learning something new, English, a musical instrument, a new sport, or even going back to school. Maybe part of you thinks it's too late. But what if it's not? What if your best years of learning haven't passed? They're just beginning. Why adults learn differently? When people talk about learning, they often focus on children and young students. And it's true. Young people are fast learners. Their brains are still developing. They usually have more time and they are used to studying in school. But does that mean adults can't learn just as well? Not at all. In fact, adults learn differently, and that can be a big advantage. First, adults bring something very valuable to the learning process, life experience. You've been through challenges, you've solved problems, you've learned how to manage time, work with others, and stay calm when things get hard. All of these skills help you learn more effectively. When you study something new as an adult, you can often connect it to what you already know. You don't start from zero. You start with a deep understanding of life. Another strength many adult learners have is discipline. As a child, you might study only when someone tells you to, a teacher, a parent, a school schedule. But as an adult, you choose to study. That decision makes a big difference. You are often more self-directed, which means you take control of your learning. You decide when how, and what to study. And because it's your choice, you often care more about the results. This is also where something called intrinsic motivation becomes important. This is a term we use to describe the kind of motivation that comes from inside you. You're not learning because someone is forcing you. You're learning because you want to grow. You have a personal reason, a dream, a goal, or a strong desire to improve. When motivation comes from inside, it's often more powerful than any outside pressure. And let's not forget one more thing. Adults usually have a growth mindset. Maybe you've heard this phrase before. A growth mindset means you believe that abilities can improve with effort. You don't think your skills are fixed. You know that if you work hard and stay consistent, you will make progress. This mindset helps you face difficulties with courage. It keeps you from giving up when things get tough, and they always do at some point. Now, of course, adults also face challenges. You might have less free time, you might feel more tired, you might even feel embarrassed to make mistakes, but these are not reasons to stop learning. In fact, these are the very things that make your progress more meaningful. When you succeed, it's not just because of talent, it's because of your effort, your focus, and your strength. Think about all the things you already know how to do, things you didn't know when you were younger. Maybe you've learned how to manage a household, raise children, use technology, or solve problems at work. All of those things took learning. You didn't know how to do them at first, but you figured it out. That's proof that you can learn, and you have learned again and again. So if you're learning English now or planning to start, remember this: you already have powerful tools. Your age is not a problem. It's actually one of your strengths. You bring focus, discipline, and a strong reason to keep going. Let me ask you a question to think about. What strengths do you already have that could help you learn better today? Maybe you're organized, maybe you're patient, maybe you're really good at listening or you enjoy reading. Maybe you've learned another skill before and you know how to break things into steps. Whatever it is, use it. Your learning journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It's yours, and you're already better prepared than you think. Common obstacles: self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear. Now that we've talked about the strengths of adult learners, let's take a moment to talk about the things that often hold people back. Because the truth is, even if we can learn something new, we don't always try. Why not? The answer is often emotional. 3 common obstacles show up again and again: self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear. Let's start with self-doubt. This is the small voice in your head that says, "I'm not good enough," or "I'm not smart enough to do this." It can show up at any time: when you try to speak in English and forget a word, when you look at a grammar book and don't understand something, or even when you compare yourself to younger, more confident learners. Self-doubt can make you feel like an outsider in the learning world, like you don't belong there. But here's the truth. Everyone has doubts. Even the people who look confident on the outside are often nervous on the inside. It's completely normal to feel unsure. Learning something new is not easy. It takes time, patience, and practice. But just because you feel doubt doesn't mean you should stop. Doubt is just a feeling. It's not a fact. You can doubt yourself and still move forward. Now let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism is the belief that you have to get everything right. No mistakes, no errors, just perfect results all the time. For adult learners, this can be a serious problem. Many adults are afraid of making mistakes, especially when speaking a new language. They think, "What if I say the wrong word?" Or, "What if people laugh at me?" But let me tell you something important. Mistakes are not the enemy. Mistakes are part of the process. They help you learn faster. Every time you make a mistake, your brain learns what not to do. You get stronger, smarter, and more flexible. Perfection is not the goal. Progress is. There's a saying in English, better late than never. It means that starting something now is better than never starting at all, even if you feel behind. Another idiom that many adults can relate to is stuck in a rut. This means doing the same thing again and again without change or growth. Sometimes we stay stuck in a rut because we're afraid to take risks. We wait for the perfect moment, but that moment never comes. And that brings us to the last big obstacle: fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of looking foolish. Fear is one of the biggest reasons people stop themselves from learning new things. It's powerful, and it often hides behind excuses. We say, "I'm too busy," or "I'll start next month." But sometimes we're really just scared. Have you ever stopped yourself because you didn't want to look foolish? Be honest with yourself. Maybe you didn't raise your hand in class because you were afraid of being wrong. Maybe you didn't join that English conversation group because you thought your accent wasn't good enough. These fears are real, but they don't have to control you. Here's something to remember. People are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. Most people are too busy thinking about their own lives, their own mistakes, their own insecurities. And the people who do laugh or judge, they are not the kind of people you need to impress. What matters is your effort, not your perfection. Instead of letting fear stop you, try to feel the fear and do it anyway. Speak up even if you make a mistake. Ask questions even if you're nervous. Take one small step forward. That's how real learning happens, not by being perfect, but by being brave. So if you've been waiting to start something new, learning English, taking a course, trying a hobby, ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? And even more importantly, what could my life look like if I decided to try anyway? You are not too old and you are not too late. You are simply standing at the beginning of something new. The question is, are you ready to begin? Small steps, big wins. Let's talk now about one of the most powerful tools in learning and also one of the most underrated: consistency. Many people think that to succeed, you need talent, a lot of time, or special skills, but that's not always true. In fact, one small step every day is often more effective than a big step once in a while. You don't need to study for hours. What you need is to keep going, even when the progress feels slow. There's a famous English expression for this: slow and steady wins the race. It means that being consistent, doing something little by little, can lead to big results over time. Think of learning like building a wall. If you put down one brick each day, your wall gets higher and stronger with time. But if you wait and try to build the whole wall in one day, you will feel tired and overwhelmed and probably give up. Learning works in the same way. It's not about doing everything today. It's about doing something today. Let me give you a few simple examples. Imagine if you learned just 5 new English words a day. That doesn't sound like much, right? It might take you only 10 or 15 minutes, but over a year, that adds up to more than 1,800 new words. That's a huge vocabulary boost, and it only takes a small daily habit. Or think about practicing English, speaking for 10 minutes a day. You could do it by recording your voice, repeating a podcast, or speaking with a friend or language partner. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be regular. The important thing is to stay consistent. That means doing it every day, even if it's just for a short time. Some days will be harder than others. You might feel tired or busy or unmotivated, but showing up even when you don't feel like it is what builds success. It's like going to the gym. One workout doesn't change your body, but many small workouts over time do. The same is true for your mind and your language skills. Here's another expression in English. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. This means you don't have to do everything perfectly. You just need to do it. If you aim for perfect, you may never start. But if you accept good enough, you can begin, and you can build from there. Consistency also builds something else, confidence. When you show up for yourself every day, even in small ways, you begin to trust yourself. You feel more in control. You see real progress. And with that progress comes motivation. It's like a circle. Small action, small result, more motivation, more action. So ask yourself, what's one small thing you could do today to get closer to your goal? Maybe it's writing a short paragraph in English about your day. Maybe it's listening to an English podcast while walking. Maybe it's using 5 new words in a real conversation. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to happen today, and then again tomorrow, and the day after that. And here's a question for you to really think about. What small habit could you start today that would make a big difference a year from now? It could be as simple as reading for 5 minutes, keeping a vocabulary journal, or repeating short conversations out loud every morning. You don't have to do everything. Just start with one thing. Because the truth is, natural talent is helpful, but it's not what creates success. What truly works in learning and in life is showing up again and again, even when no one is watching, even when progress feels slow, even when you make mistakes. The people who succeed are not always the smartest. They are the most consistent. So take a deep breath, look at your day, and choose one small step, then take it. That's how real change begins. Mindset over age. The secret to lifelong learning. Let's now talk about something even more important than age, time, or even your past experience, and that is your mindset. Your mindset is the way you think about yourself and your ability to learn. It's the voice inside your head that says, I can do this, or it's too late for me. Many people stop themselves from learning new things, not because of their age, but because of their mindset. They believe they are too old, too slow, or not smart enough, but that's simply not true. In fact, your brain can learn and grow at any age as long as you keep your mind open. It's not your age that stops you. It's the belief that age is a barrier. That belief can become a wall that you build around yourself. But if you break that wall and open your mind, you can do amazing things. One key word here is open-minded. Being open-minded means being ready to accept new ideas and try new things. It means not saying, I already know everything, or this is not for me. Instead, it means asking questions, being curious, and staying flexible. Another important word is curiosity. Curious people are always looking for something new to learn. They don't let fear stop them. They don't feel embarrassed to ask questions. And most importantly, they enjoy the learning process even when it's slow or difficult. If you keep your curiosity alive, you will always find motivation to move forward. But let's be honest, learning isn't always easy. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we feel stuck. This is where resilience becomes important. Resilience means the ability to keep going even when things are tough. It's like a strong tree that bends in the wind but doesn't break. When you are resilient, you learn from your mistakes instead of feeling ashamed. You don't give up. You just try again. Many adult learners are too hard on themselves. They compare themselves to others. They feel bad when they make a mistake or when they don't understand something quickly. But let me ask you this. Are you judging yourself more than others actually are? Most people are not laughing at you. Most people are not watching or waiting for you to fail. In fact, many people admire you for trying because they are afraid to try themselves. We need to stop being our own biggest critic. Instead, we should become our own biggest supporter. Talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. Be kind, be patient, be proud of the effort, not just the result. When you see yourself as a learner, not a failure, not too old, not too late, then real progress becomes possible. Think about this. Children don't worry about making mistakes. They try, they fail, they laugh, and they try again. That's why they learn so fast. As adults, we become too serious. We worry too much. We want to be perfect before we even start. But perfection is not the goal. Learning is. So how can you start thinking like a learner again? First, let go of fear. Allow yourself to be a beginner. Second, stay curious. Ask questions. Explore, read, listen, watch. Third, practice resilience. When something doesn't go well, don't stop. Just adjust your plan and try again. You have a choice every day. You can say, I'm too old to learn this. Or you can say, I'm excited to grow. You can say, I'm not good at this. Or you can say, I'm just getting started. That choice, the way you talk to yourself, makes all the difference. Remember, it's not the young brain that learns best. It's the open brain, the curious brain, the resilient brain. If you keep your mindset in the right place, age will never stop you. In fact, with age comes experience, understanding, and patience, all of which are powerful tools for learning. So today, ask yourself again, are you judging yourself more than others actually are? And then make a decision to believe in your ability to grow at any age, with any background, and at your own pace. That's the real secret to lifelong learning. As we come to the end of this episode, let's take a moment to remember the most important message. It's never too late to start learning, no matter your age, your past, or your level. If you're ready to begin, you are already on the right path. Learning something new, like a language, a skill, or even a new way of thinking, doesn't require perfection. It just requires a decision to take the first step. You've heard today that mindset matters more than age, that progress begins the moment you stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I'll try. You've learned that curiosity, resilience, and open-mindedness are more powerful than fear, self-doubt, or judgment. And most of all, you've been reminded that you are not behind anyone. You are on your own unique journey. Now, I'd like to ask you to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what have I been putting off because I thought it was too late? What small step can I take today towards something I've always wanted to do? Maybe it's learning English, maybe it's practicing speaking without fear, maybe it's reading a book in English, starting a course, or just having a short conversation with someone. Whatever it is, take that step today. You don't have to change everything at once. You don't have to be fast. You just have to move forward. Even slow steps take you somewhere, and over time, you'll look back and see how far you've come, not because it was easy, but because you didn't give up. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know there are so many things you could be doing, and I truly appreciate that you chose to be here, to listen, to grow. That tells me something powerful about you. You care about becoming better, and that is something rare and beautiful. If this episode gave you something to think about, something to feel, or simply reminded you that you're not alone on this journey, I would really love to hear from you. Leave a comment, send a message, tell me what you're learning right now or what your next step is. You never know. Your words might inspire someone else who's listening and feeling exactly like you. And remember this, you're not behind, you're not too old, you're not too late. You're exactly where you need to be at the start of something new. Every fluent speaker, every confident learner, every wise teacher, they all started where you are, at the beginning. You're not alone. You're part of a growing global community of learners who are choosing growth over fear and action over excuses. So believe in yourself a little more today. Start small, stay curious, be kind to yourself, and most of all, keep going. You've got this.